And we are live. Hey, hello, this is Alejandro Villasana, and this is my presentation of my final project for the class EDUL, um, EDUL 8105 Leadership Theory. This is the summer of 2026 term. Dr. Jennifer VanSlander is our professor. In this presentation, I'm going to argue that uh, the principles of scholarship of teaching and learning, SoTL, can be used to compensate for the bottleneck, for the limited amount of instructional coaches or instructional leadership focused on computer science. That is my main argument, that's the thesis that I'm presenting here. Before we jump into the presentation, three things I want to share with you as housekeeping items. The first one is I'm using YouTube. The presentation is based on PowerPoint, but since my configuration here at home in my studio is already tailored towards Facebook, YouTube, that's what I'm doing. So this video is going to be posted on my personal channel. It's going to be public, so anyone with a link um, should be able to watch it. The second item is that I'm at home, of course. Our house, it's an old house. There is a lot of noises going on, and it's raining outside. So you may hear some background noises. Uh, I'm apologizing beforehand. I'm wearing my headset here, trying to prevent all that noise, but it may happen. Um, and the third thing I want to share before we begin is that I'm using instructional leadership and instructional coaching as synonyms. I'm arguing that, at least in the context of computer science, and we're going to get into the details about this, they are one and the same. I'm sure we can argue back and forth, but for the purpose of this presentation, that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to use these two terms as a synonym. So with that said, let's go to the presentation. So we're going to begin with my background, uh, personal and professional. I think it's important to kind of know both. I'm originally from Mexico, migrated to the U.S. in the late 90s with my wife. Back then, we were just one year into our marriage. Now, last year we celebrated 30 years. So in Mexico, I went to college there, and I obtained a bachelor's degree in software engineering. I have been working designing software and hardware applications since the late 90s. In Mexico was focused exclusively on industrial applications. I worked designing software for the National Oil Company in Mexico for their research and development department. Here in the States later, uh, I work primarily designing business applications. In Mexico, I had the opportunity to teach computer science both at the high school and college level, also in public schools and in private schools. So I had some experience teaching. Once here in the States in the late 90s, I was ordained. I began my studies, my theological studies, and I became an ordained minister in the Presbyterian Church in America. In our tradition, uh, we we call the ordination that I obtained, this position that I obtained, we call it a teaching elder, which means that the church has seen some evidence of what we consider a giftedness to teach. So this gives you the background information about my journey into education. So in the year 2002, I became an ordained minister in this denomination. I got involved here in Gwinnett with public schools. In the year 2019, I started as a substitute teacher, then became a long-term substitute, and eventually a teacher of record. I have been teaching since the year 2021 at our local high school. I teach computer science principles and AP computer science principles. I also co-teach, or this year that just ended, or last school year, um, I taught geometry, but my presentation here is focused on my experience as a CS teacher. Regarding our school, it's very diverse. You can see here on the screen the breakdown of the demographics. Even though 55%, about 55% of our student body is considered Hispanic, and I go like this because personally I have a problem with that term. I have a problem with it, which is better than Latino, and I can argue about that, but that is for another time, that discussion. But I don't want you to have the impression that Hispanic, the term, is a homogeneous, monolithic term. In the world, there are about 22, at least 22 Hispanic countries, meaning there are at least 22 countries in the world that can trace their lineage back to Spain, hence Hispanic. Out of those 22, about 19 of those countries are represented in our school. So I want you to have that in mind because that gives you a better understanding of the cultural diversity that we enjoy in our school. So that is our context. Talking about my definition of instructional leadership. This is my definition. I came up with it. I wrote different versions. I processed them myself. No AI used here, and I'm basing or I base my definition on my experience as a leader. I have I have had that benefit, that blessing of being a leader. I have that inclination to lead. I have done it in the private sector, in the industry. I have done it in ministry. I have led teams of 5 people. I have led national ministries and everything in between. So I have years of experience as a leader. So I came up with this definition, and this definition focuses on what I'm going to call my theory of leadership. It's not exclusive of educational or instructional leadership. However, my position is that a leader is a leader. The application, the field varies, and yes, there are they're not small, but there are some differences if you're a leader in the industry and if you're a leader in education, of course. But fundamentally, I will argue that all leaders share some characteristics. And here I'm presenting them in two parts. On one hand is what the leader knows, and the other, the willingness to act. So for me, a leader is an individual who is aware of what's happening of the situation and knows that the situation uh, needs improvement. It has a clear idea of where the, the the change should take us, and it has access. The leader has access to resources. All this combined with the willingness to act, to move, to close the gap between what it is and what it should be. That to me is a leader. That's my own definition. And these ideas are not exclusively mine. Looking at the resources that we had, additional resources we had for this assignment, I found some support for my ideas. Here we have Jenkins writing about this idea of the leader creating that movement between what it is and what should be, the pursuit of that vision. So Jenkins writes about it. The Tennessee Department of Education highlights this highlights the importance of collaboration, that the leader cannot do it alone. It has to be a collaborative effort. And then UDUB's Center for Educational Leadership uh, describes what I call access, what I in my definitions call access. The leader doesn't have to have all the resources available at once. Those resources they don't have to be the leaders, but the leader must have access somehow, has to have these um, access, maybe through other individuals, to resources that can be used to move, to change the situation from what it is to what it should be. So there is evidence in the material, in the resources that we got. There's evidence in the literature that supports this idea that I presented as my definition of instructional leadership. Based on that definition, again, I thought about it. I came up with a graphic representation with a visual theory of instructional leadership. This is my poor attempt to present a graphic that represents that process. Um, I put all this together, and then after after a long conversation with an AI agent, in this case Gemini from Google, uh, it came with this representation, this visual theory of my definition of what it is an instructional leader. You can tell AI, I'm not good at art, I'm not good at drawing, I'm not good at this, and I have a very difficult time describing what I wanted. This is the best result. I tried and I tried and I tried, and overall, I'm happy with the result. You can see here what it says system fuel line 1. If you compare that with system fuel line 2, they're in different places in relationship with the arrows going into the system. And I try my hardest to tell Gemini they have to be both on top of the arrows, and it came with some crazy answers. But again, evidence that AI doesn't make you what you're not. I'm not an artist, so AI is not going to make me an artist, but it's very helpful tool. And again, it took several interactions, several prompts in order to get this image at this quality, at this level. Uh, Credit to the agent. It understood my idea of having this industrial vibe, this idea of a process. Of course, I gave the agent, the AI agent, I gave Gemini my original drawing, the one that you saw before. And after several, and I mean several iterations, we came with this. We're going to come back to this image a little later when we talk about the action plan that I'm proposing to solve the challenge that I will describe here in a moment. We were asked to summarize 2 articles. When I went to read these articles and process these articles and synthesize them, I look at them from the perspective of my thesis that SoTL can be used as a framework to um, overcome the challenge that we have in computer science education regarding instructional leadership. So from that perspective, I have these 3 points for each article here about what Goddard wrote. The focus is in collaboration, how important collaboration is for instructional leadership. I was surprised, gladly surprised, and it was encouraging here the last point to read about the emphasis that Goddard places on the formality of collaboration. How it is important that collaboration is not 100% organic or flexible or casual. in a way, I see, in my personal opinion, I see a parallel between what Goddard wrote about uh, the importance of being frequent and formal and focus, collaboration. I see a parallel between that and what we read in the textbook that we use for our course. We look at different options for leadership. We saw different models of instructional leadership, and it was a very interesting readings, and I enjoyed our discussion board tremendously. Very often, the writers and or the people that were quoted and the writer of the book came back to the idea of balance. That excuse me, absolute top down leadership doesn't work. Excuse me, absolute freedom, uh, anarchy, chaotic, that doesn't work either. So the idea of uh, striking a balance that was highlighted in our textbook, and I think Goddard is that what here is pointing us to in his comments about excuse me, the need for collaboration to be formal and frequent and focus on specific goals. Then what Sanchez and Watson wrote um, echoes some of my points about SoTL being useful to solve the challenges that we have in CS education for instructional leadership. The first point, these 5 themes of effective leadership, we're going to come back to that. We're going to connect this to SoTL because SoTL also have 5 pillars of effective practices. And then the idea that Sanchez and Watson writes about regarding knowing the context, uh, being present in the classroom, being there, not trying to solve the problem from afar, and finally the need to data to have accurate quality data for decision making. All that is going to play into the proposed plan, action plan here in a few more slides. In terms of the self-assessment that we took, here are the first 7 indicators. You begin to see a pattern right away in terms of my instructional leadership or my yeah my way of being a leader in the school in the context of education. By the way, I modified the statements. I tried to make them more applicable to my situation. I tried to keep the spirit of the letter, but I have to change uh, the the spirit of the statement. But I tried to change it, and I changed the wording, of course, but the meaning I tried to preserve. So right away you begin saying here like there's significant contrast. You can see indicator 3 for instance compared to indicator 1 and 2. Then indicator 7 again takes a dive. Here are the other 7 indicators. Same pattern. You see, for instance, number 12 is the lowest in my self-evaluation. Um, Analyzing the results, I came with this analysis, 3 core strengths, 3 areas of growth, and it to me makes perfect sense. My experience as a leader in the industry and in ministry um, had given me those strengths. Something that I failed to mention as a minister, as an ordained minister in the Presbyterian Church in America, I have been blessed with opportunity to lead congregations of different sizes, different locations here in the U.S. But all of them, what they have in common is that all of them were culturally diverse. So my cultural coefficient is rather high because of my experience in ministry. Hence the high uh, scores on those indicators in terms of um, in terms of leadership. And here you may think, oh, wait a second. So if you have that experience, if you know how to navigate different cultures, if you know how to deal with different kind of people, how is your areas of growth, are all of them related to collaboration? And the paradox can be explained if you consider the fact that I'm relatively new to education. Education is my third career, my third professional career. I just started in the year 2019, as I mentioned. I'm very thankful for the years that I spent as a substitute teacher. I learned a whole lot. It was very helpful, very good training for me by when the opportunity came to become a teacher of record. So that was very good. Even with my experience in Mexico teaching and the spiritual giftedness that we believe, my church and I believe that I have been given, considering all that, I still didn't know the environment in public school. I didn't know the environment in Gwinnett County public schools. I didn't know how things work. So I have to learn how to collaborate in that context. Then, if you add the fact that computer science um, in our school, computer science is part of the career and technology education department, which includes a a big diversity, is rather diverse in terms of the classes that are the courses that are included in CTE. In that environment, experiencing collaboration has been almost non-existent. We do get together, but there is no professional learning communities in that department. We are only two teachers of computer science, and our schedules are so different that it has been very difficult to collaborate. Last school year, being part of the geometry department, brought for me my first direct experience with PLCs. It was very good. It was very helpful. So I began to understand how to collaborate, um, but I definitely an area of growth for me, and I really want to improve in in that regard. Now, about the problem that I want to address, we're going to go from a wide perspective down to a localized challenge. We're going to go from the state of Georgia level down to the BT 104 computer lab. That is, BT 104 is the room number of our computer lab. So that's what we're going to do. So let me explain. At the state level, the Georgia Department of Education has this mandate requiring school districts and other institutions in education to have formal plans for professional development. These plans, these practices that are required by the state of Georgia from every school district uh, include instructional leadership. They say instructional leadership or instructional coaching should be included in the professional development of the teachers. However, at the state level, there is no funding for the. Well, let me change that. There is funding only for certain kind of instructional leaders. Uh, so, for the literacy, now there's a new initiative, and the state is funding literacy instructional coaches, but not all content areas are funded. So the state leaves that to each school district. It requires professional development. It mentions instructional leadership, but it leaves that funding and structure to every school district according to their context and resources. In our case, in Gwinnett County takes that mandate from the states, or took that mandate and created a 5-year strategic plan. This 5-year strategic plan, of course, includes the professional development of its teachers and its focus, its student center. This strategic plan. And the priorities listed here, as you can see: empathy, equity, effectiveness, and excellence. And for each one of those priorities, there is a list of goals and targets that we as a school district are aiming at. And this is WINET's interpretation of the state mandate. So from the state to the school district. Now, at our school, we took, and I say we, but really the school administration, the principal and the APs and the school leadership takes that or took that strategic plan and say, this is how we're going to implement it at our local school here in our community. And for that, the schools develop what is called a local school plan for improvement. And in that plan, there's a description of how we are going to pursue the target for these five focuses of the strategic plan. Once that is established as a school, then each teacher must create or submit to our corresponding APs. We submit a plan, a professional development plan, and that plan is tracked using the results-based evaluation system. This is an online software provided by the district that allows the local school to evaluate through the school year the progress that each teacher is making towards the LSPIs, which represent the five focuses of the strategic plan that represents the mandate that we have from the state of Georgia. So these LSPIs, last school year, here I'm using data from last school year, most likely it will remain the same. At our school, two specific targets that we have for the LSPIs is to reduce absenteeism and to increase graduation rate. So that is at a school level. Those are our targets. Now, here comes the problem. The problem is that in our school, we only have two instructional coaches. And I know some of my classmates might say, wow, do you have two? There's none in my class, in my school. I understand that. I really believe at the beginning, I really believe that every school had instructional coaches on staff. I know that's not the case. I know that now. So we have two. We are almost 190 teachers, 190 members of the faculty at our school. So two is really not enough. Because of that, the strategy that our school follows or implements is that these two instructional coaches are focused almost exclusively on first year teachers. And by first year, it means your first year at Norcross, at our school. If you're coming from another school, if you're coming from another district, maybe you have years of experience, it doesn't matter. You're a first year teacher at a local school, then you are assigned to one of these two instructional coaches. They do a great job. When I was studying at Mercer, my instructional coach provided by the school, oh my goodness, very, very helpful. Ms. Russell was amazing. He helped me a lot. Now, the issue is this. These instructional coaches, it's not a complaint. I mean this with all the respect and admiration that I have for them. These instructional coaches, they focus on best practices across the board, across the disciplines. They are not specialized in computer science. So many of the challenges or the specific challenges that we have in computer science education cannot be covered by this approach to instructional leadership. So we have this challenge. Uh, and again, it becomes even more evident if we consider the advanced classes, like AP Computer Science Principles. There is an AP focus on all the an assistant principal, an AP. There's an assistant principal focus in all the AP classes. But again, her knowledge is across the board and from the administration of AP classes, not with the challenges, specific challenges of an AP CSP class, for instance. That is the problem. That is the challenge that we face at our school. Now, this is not exclusively present. This challenge is not unique to our local school. I had the opportunity of attending the Computer Science Teachers Association annual conference this week. And I just came back last night in New Orleans. And one of the presentations that I attended, one of the presenters was Dr. Chang, and she leads one of the groups, working groups in the CSTA, Computer Science Teachers Association, focused on developing coaches, instructional coaches, to support computer science teachers. And and here's a little description of what she said. She shared with us the situation where some schools, because of the limited resources they have one or two coaches only, and most of the time CS education is an elective class. In K to 12 education is an elective class. So principals redirect those few instructional coaches that they have to core classes, and the CS teacher goes unsupported. So this limitation is real. I have experienced it. I see it in my school, but also according to the CSTA, it's a problem that it's a problem. I keep saying problem. It's a challenge that we have nationwide. It's not exclusive of our school. So, what I'm proposing to do, I'm proposing that we implement, or that I'm proposing that I will implement. At least this is my personal plan. This is what I'm planning on doing this school year that is about to start next week for us. Um, I'm proposing that the scholarship of teaching and learning, the SoTL, can be a foundational framework to implement instructional leadership in a self-coaching mode, or following a self-coaching model. In other words, SoTL will give me the structure that I need to be my own instructional leader, my own instructional coach. So that is what I'm proposing. How are we going to do it? First, just as a reference, why SoTL? Why are we using this? Well, with the principles of SoTL, I can recalibrate my classroom and make it, or turn it into a research lab for pedagogy, a pedagogical research lab. I have been running my classes, my computer science classes, as a startup. I tell students, hey, this is a startup, I'm the boss, you are interns, etc., etc. This school year, I'm going to change that emphasis, or that focus. I'm going to tell them we are a research lab. In that way, I'm gonna try to entice them to participate and collaborate even more. So SoTL can change a classroom into a research lab because of the structure that it follows. Here, I have the 5 pillars, the core pillars of SoTL, the 5 practices, and they reflect what Sanchez and Watson describe as good or best practices for instructional leadership. You will notice here that parents it's in a different color, and that's because I'm adding that. That is from the perspective of a definition, an application that's new, subtle. Most of the time, what I have learned is that it's applicable, used is used more often in higher education. So, in higher education, students are already adults. There is almost no need to involve parents. In high school, that's not the case. So, parents are still a huge component of the educational process in secondary education. So I believe, and here's my little thesis, I believe that SoTL can give us that framework that we need in order to implement instructional leadership using a self-coaching mode. How are we going to do that? Let's go into the details. So here's our canvas that represents my visual theory of leadership. So first, what is the problem? The problem or the challenge that we have is to increase both attendance and graduation rates. Now, personally, I'm adding here again that the reason is in another font color. I'm adding intrinsic motivation because I think there are two reasons. One is I believe that when we focus too much on just graduation rates, on just the numbers, we're not really going deeper into the question, are students really learning? So that's one reason that I'm including here intrinsic motivation. The other is because that is the main topic of my dissertation research. The theoretical framework that I'm using for my research is self-determination theory. So this is going to be important for me for my dissertation, and I want to include it now as I'm making these plans for uh, the school year that is about to start. So those are the challenges. That's where we are. Those are the needs that we are addressing. In terms of this humility that we need or that I need, expressed in terms of collaboration, I'm going to keep using our local and regional PLCs. I'm planning on participating more, increase my participation. There is a PLC in school for geometry. I'm going to pursue the creation of another that relates to computer science more closely, but also, okay, different color here, different font color. I want to get more involved with the Computer Science Teachers Association working groups. During this conference that just ended, I applied for a new working group besides the coaching working group or the group that is focused on creating more or preparing more instructional coaches. Besides that group, I applied to a group that is going to be working on professional development for CS teachers. Um, they they're going to be working on uh, development pathways for teachers who are already in the classroom. So I'm very interested in supporting my community that way. So this is how I'm going to pursue um, collaboration. The resources that I have available, uh, I have an extended, long experience, professional experience in the field. I'm also a professional member of very influential professional organizations like the Association for Computing Machinery or the Computer Society of the IEEE. I want to use those resources even more. I have used them in the past. I want to use them more. But also, I believe that I have reached a place in my education here at Columbus State University. I'm going to equate it to a critical mass. I think I have, and I know it's been only what 3 semesters, but I feel that I'm at a place where I have acquired enough information, enough education that I need to begin to put it into practice. I need to begin giving away what I have received. Um, Also, a couple months ago, I took a course and an online course about SoTL practices from the Open University in London. I did well in that class, so I want to use everything that not everything, but I want to use what I have been learning and apply it. So it's one of my resources. In terms of feedback for another class, um, the class that we took this semester on this summer on effective assessment, um, to improve the assessment cycle in my classes, I developed a new feedback system. I have been giving feedback to students. I try to be in touch with parents, but honestly, it's been just one way from me to them. There is almost no feedback coming back, and very rarely students take action based on the feedback that I'm giving them. The main reason, again, is that hyper focus on grades. Am I passing or not? If I'm passing, I'm fine. Students don't read the feedback. Uh, they don't act upon the feedback that I'm giving them. If they're failing, 99% of the time, they will come to me and say, Mr. Villasana, tell me what I need to do to improve my grade. Say, it's already in the feedback that I'm sending you. So I have developed a new system where here the idea is that it's going to be two-way, back and forth, and it's going to be actionable. I'm going to give the feedback in a way that the students and parents can act upon, and I'm going to ask, what is the plan? What are you planning on doing with this feedback? Here is the plan. Here are the details. I will begin with acquiring a baseline based on the data from last school year. I will refine my inquiry in terms of attendance and graduation rates and intrinsic motivation. I'm going to fine tune those challenges or the definitions of those challenges, which will address the first and second part of the SoTL framework. I have developed already a research proposal. I use it to entice some professors at CSU to be part of my dissertation committee. I'm very thankful that I have the 3 members of my committee. So I have done extensive work in designing this research. I use this proposal, I'm going to call it informal proposal, also to apply for approval for the research at my local district at Gwinnett County. It's almost for sure that I'm going to get approval. I got some communication. I think I'm going to get a letter of approval actually next week. So the details of how I'm going to conduct this, the practical steps to implement this framework are already specified, excuse me, in that proposal. Uh, I my plan is to use the feedback system that I have designed for the assessment class. I'm going to refine and use more intentionally both the BT104 student profile and the BT104 main rubric. The rubric explains what elements of the profile have been mastered or not, and it gives a translation into the grades that are being published in the grade book. So this connects the skills and habits and um, the characteristics that are included in our profile, which I designed that profile based on my experience in the industry and represent what tech companies are looking for. The, the rubric translate that into the grades, and that connects with the learning objectives in our school district. So I'm using these 2 documents that I developed them a couple of years ago, and I have been refining them. So I'm going to give them again. I'm going to revisit it, refine them even more, and use them more intentionally to support the feedback system that I created and or I have it the new design. Finally, for the 5th best practice or the 5th pillar of scholarship of teaching and learning, I will uh, develop the habit of sharing my findings with my colleagues. I'm going to get into the mentality, or I'm going to acquire the habit of writing short presentations and distribute them um, to my coworkers, my colleagues at my school, and then through the working groups of the CSTA. So this is my plan. This is what I hope to do for this coming school year. This is how I'm going to apply what I have learned in this class of theory of leadership. What is the conclusion? I'm going to go back to my definition. I think that a leader knows what it is, have a clear idea of what it should be, have access to resources, and is willing to act. Is willing to act in humility. Is willing to act bringing other people together, knowing that it's not about the leader. It's about, in our case, improving the educational process uh, in our schools, in our classrooms. But also, this leader knows that it's all for the common good. That it's not only about the students. An instructional leader knows that what they do in the classroom will affect the community and a common future that should be good for all of us. This definition of leadership that I use here uh, is applicable to all educators. It's not dependent on having the title of instructional coach or instructional leader. And I think the self-coaching model that I described can be very useful in this regard. These are my references, and that is my presentation. I want to thank you for your attention. Thank you for your time. I'm looking at my time. Yeah, it was kind of long, but thank you so much. Dr. VanSlander, thank you for a very interesting class. And to my classmates, thank you so much for all the exchanges that we had via the discussion board. That was interesting. And the small group discussion, they were very, very good. So thank you so much. Have a great break until, what is it, August the 10th, August the 12th, when we begin the fall term. So until then, ciao. Thanks.